Good morning, everyone. My name's Lorraine Wood, and I'm the director of Arena, and I'm absolutely delighted to welcome you all here this afternoon to Arena's webinar today, which is entitled Future-Proofing Sustainability in the Workplace, together with our partner Nescafe. Now, before actually getting underway, we've just got a couple of housekeeping points. So you will notice at the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A box. So basically, in addition to the panel discussion, you'll be able to ask our panelists questions. So all you need to do is actually pop them in the Q&A box, and our panelists will answer them either throughout the discussion, or I'm going to pop back on at the end and pose some of the questions that you've asked to our panelists. So without further ado, I'd like to actually welcome our host for today, who is Anita Murray, the CEO of William Murray PR and Marketing. And I'll actually see you at the end of the Q&A, sorry, at the end of the session for the Q&A. So over to you, Anita.
Thanks, Lorraine, and welcome everyone. I believe we've got a fairly full house, over 150 people today, so that's wonderful. So first things first, I'd like to introduce you to our panelists, starting with Anne Simonet, who is Head of Sustainability and Compliance at Foodbuy UK and Ireland. Hi, Anne. Next, I'd like to introduce you to Peter Statham, who is Head of Sustainability and Government Relations for Brakes. Hi there, Peter.
Hello.
And last but definitely not least is Dr. Emma Keller, who's Head of Sustainability, Nestlé UK and Ireland. Hi, Emma.
Everyone.
Hi. Right, so in terms of today's webinar, the aim really is to bring you lots of insights and new ideas from our expert panel about how to drive positive change in the workplace. And I don't know if you've done this, but if you Google sustainability, you get an absolute deluge of scholarly articles, of strategies, of top tips. And it's actually really difficult to get to the bottom of what sustainability actually is. So I thought I'd ask Emma to set the scene for us, to look at what is sustainability and why now is it harder to drive change for good. So thanks, Emma.
Thanks, Anita, and what a huge question to start the webinar off. And that's because it's so important. Sustainability is a big topic, and of course one we know that has evolved over time. And I guess if you break down the word sustainability, it's about sustaining. But we all know we live in a broken food system and are actually a world that's facing a huge amount of challenges. So actually sustaining what's broken is just not good enough anymore. We actually need to move past just sustaining through into rebuilding and regenerating. So I think sustainability has evolved hugely. And really we need to look at it in that holistic sense. It's about health, the health of people, the health of planet, the health of nature. It's about the environment, and of course it's about society, which includes the economy. We can't see it without those three pillars. So really excited to get into this chat with the panel today. I'm sure we'll come up with new facets of sustainability all over the place, but just wanting to give three key points really for what I think sustainability is about for all of us, particularly when driving this agenda through our workplaces. It's firstly about a change mindset. How do we all play our role in challenging the status quo, asking and seeing if things can be done differently in a way that not just reduces or minimizes the impact on the environment, but in a way that has a positive impact on people and planet. It's about innovation, looking at new modes of delivering goods and services, particularly food, that can reduce waste and deliver both health and sustainability benefits. And lastly, and most importantly, it's about action, not waiting to sit and wait for perfect evidence or data, but actually being willing to test and learn and act now. So looking forward to get into the conversation today.
Thanks, Emma. That's great. Those three key points there, diluting what is a very complex topic into 3 points. It's amazing. So we're in a situation at the moment where a lot of workplaces are operating a hybrid model. So I wanted to ask Anne my first question, which is, what is a sustainable workplace and how do you think it has changed post-pandemic?
I think the main change, hi everybody, the main change is the focus on quality of life, I think, since the pandemic. And we're looking in workplace fluidity and for them to be a bit more adaptive. We're talking a lot about the hybrid model. Is it working for everybody to start with? There is quite a lot of very interesting trial, actually, that started, I think, yesterday on a 4-day a week. But ultimately, a sustainable workplace, I think, is a place that puts its people at the center. I go and see a lot of suppliers that do amazing things in their community, but when you ask them what they do within their own company, there's often a gap that needs to be closed. So sustainable workplace is a place where diversity is not just a KPIs, it's becoming second nature. And outside, of course, of the operation and the waste, the leading of by example of what you do within your company. You certainly want to engage your team. Sustainable workplace is a place, in my view, where the hierarchy is a little bit flatter as well, and where you accept to be challenged on sustainable points or not, but where definitely you get your team engaged on all of those topics. I think there was a recent survey that stated that for the people that participated, that more than half of the people now would want to work for a company that is green conscious. So we're not even at the stage where we want to retain people, but to be able to recruit, we're really going to have to put that at the forefront.
That's really interesting. Thank you, Anne. And Peter, what's your view on this? And what are the new challenges that we need to be aware of with this new way of working?
Yeah, I think I'd agree with everything Anne says. And I think, the other thing that Emma said was around, sustainability is about people and the environment. I think that people element becomes even more important, and well-being of our colleagues, of the workforce, is a really critical element. Anne mentioned diversity as well, and that kind of, the kind of people you're bringing in. The other piece is also, as sustainability, we know, is becoming much more important to our colleagues and to our potential employees. But with people not working in offices and not being physically there, it becomes even harder to engage them and to show what you're doing. So I think that while becoming more important, is also becoming more difficult, and potentially, some may argue maybe it's easier with digital tools and things. But I think it's something to be aware of for sure.
Thank you, Peter. That's an interesting point around how hard it is now to engage with your teams. And Emma, how does sustainability affect every part of the company, from staff and customer attraction and retention, etc.?
Yeah, I think Anne and Peter have raised some really interesting points. We're at such an interesting time, aren't we? We're still not quite post-pandemic. We haven't gone back to normal. We don't quite know what the new normal is yet. And of course, we saw throughout the pandemic, actually, emissions plummeted because part of the economy shut down. Things did change, behaviours did change. Particularly for us, we saw a notable impact on consumers, on their mindsets, and also on their behaviours. And when we started asking our consumers what importance they placed on sustainability, and from the brands and the products that they buy, 44% of them said it was equally as important as before. But there was a whole 31% saying that it was much more important than they ever realised. And partly because they had their eyes opened a little bit by the pandemic and really started to understand that interplay between nature and between the way we live our human lives. So, and both have mentioned it already, but it's absolutely critical to attracting the right people. I'm hearing it every day when our teams are interviewing for new talent. One of the first questions candidates ask is, what is your purpose? What are you doing on sustainability? What's your environmental approach? And we're actually seeing across the sector that people are turning down jobs or taking lower salaries because they want to work for companies that are doing the right thing. Nobody wants to work for a company that is not doing its part to tackle the major societal issues that we face. So it's incredibly important. I guess and probably Anne and Peter will share this, but we've all got the head of sustainability title, which means we have to engage with colleagues in marketing, in sales, in operations, in finance, in HR. And it's really about trying to understand, what does sustainability mean in their context, and how do we motivate them both from a head, a heart, and also a hands point of view? What's the thing we need them to think and feel? What's the emotion we need them to have? And then what's the practical thing we need them to do with their hands and through their job? So it's really important to just not go in and be like, you need to be more sustainable, but to really break it down for what it means for a HR colleague compared to a finance colleague. And I think that's absolutely critical if we're going to have everybody in the workplace get on board and help us achieve the shared goal.
Thanks, Emma. That sounds very challenging, because you're dealing with lots of different people and different drivers for those people. And that kind of brings us on nicely to the next question, which is there's a whole host of challenges at the moment that's being that food service is facing, from price inflation right through to staffing issues, etc. So how can a company present a really strong case for sustainability when you've got all of these challenges happening, I guess, in a way that is going to help mitigate those challenges? So Emma, I'd like to ask, what are the areas that you are focusing on as a business, and what is driving Nestlé's sustainability agenda?
Yeah, great context. Absolutely. This is a really challenging time for businesses to just keep going, to sustain themselves and kind of continue to operate in really complex. But it's really important that sustainability doesn't get kicked into the long grass, because actually when you start to unpack some of the global challenges we're facing, whether that's inflation on the commodities and the ingredients we need, there's a huge set of multifaceted complex issues that are driving those challenges. But one of them is the degradation of the environment and things like climate change, which we're already seeing crop failures and challenges across the world. So we really need to get a handle on it now if we're to future-proof our business and our sector, of course. And for Nestlé, our overarching goal is to be a regenerative company. So we want to drive regenerative food systems at scale. And that's one of the beautiful things that we can do at Nestlé, given we're one of the biggest food companies in the world, is we can really seed that change. And a key focus for us, therefore, given about 70% of our total impact is in our ingredient supply chain, that will be common for most food businesses. We absolutely have to work with our suppliers, with our farmers, to innovate, to find more collaborative opportunities, to partner with them, to share the risk of taking on some of these new practices. So for us, it's really about driving that regenerative practices through our entire value chain that's keeping us focused at the moment.
Thank you. And I was reading about your Podback blueprint, and I was just wondering how that could be adapted and integrated into workplace facilities and catering. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, definitely. Podback's got such an interesting backstory. It's and actually has resulted in us as Nestlé working with some of our biggest coffee competitors, typically companies we wouldn't normally hang out in a room with. But sustainability's got a way of bringing people together, because we had a shared challenge. We had a pod problem. We were putting out a huge number of coffee pods into the system for consumers to enjoy delicious coffees at home, but that was resulting in a huge amount of either aluminium or plastic waste, but also huge quantities of spent coffee grounds. And it was only by coming together with some of our biggest competitors in the sector that we could say, look, what do we do? How do we recover these pods so that we can both recycle and reuse the aluminium and the plastic and drive a more circular economy? But also, and really interestingly, we could get back those spent coffee grounds and revalorize them and use them, for example, for fertilizers on farms. Again, creating another circular economy and reducing the need for virgin inputs. So I think sustainability absolutely should be seen as that opportunity to problem solve, to collaborate, and to do things in a bigger way than any one company can do on its own. So absolutely, we encourage all retailers or food service outlets who are using coffee pods to get involved in the Podback scheme, send back your coffee pods and help us create that more circular economy together.
That's a great example of collaboration. I love that. And Anne, can I ask you, please, how is Foodbuy working with your customers from a sustainability perspective?
It's very much understanding their need, where they are. They're all in very different stages of their sustainable journey. So it's spending time a little bit like we do with our suppliers. Ultimately, is understanding what are you doing, what do you understand, what is your vision, how can we help. We're very much for our customers, we're enablers of their sustainability journey. Like Emma said, a lot of their emission will ultimately be sitting with us as their scope 3. So we're supporting or offering the help to build their roadmap and see within what we can achieve in food buy, how can we then apply it to their needs. We have a number of initiatives as well around regenerative agriculture. We're part of the Soil Association Exchange, and ultimately being part of those initiatives becomes relevant to our client as well. They're through us being part of this as well. And sustainable farming, absolutely agreeing with Emma here, should be key. So many ingredients will be coming through that it's absolutely important that we nail it, and we help define what is also sustainable farming. So all those through the biohubs and other farms that we're building, taking our clients on this journey, and I think building the trust that we are the right partner for them to achieve this, and being very genuine, having bold ambitions, inspire the day we can inspire our client is a fantastic success. I think so. That's very much what we want to do. We want to be proactive. We don't really want them to come and ask us things, but again, proactively take them on a number of initiatives with us, and without something to pump us. But there's an element of education. If we can participate on this as well, then it's fantastic.
So that's interesting that collaboration, the proactivity that Emma was talking about. You very much are a proponent of that, so you can feel the excitement actually from the answers. So that's wonderful. And Peter, coming on to you, what is Brakes focusing on, and how are you working with your suppliers and customers?
Yeah, and I will come on to answer your question, but I think the first point you made around the challenges of a sustainability business case, and actually building what Anne and Emma both just said. And I find quite exciting is I've been in started this role in January, and I'm sure many of the people on this will know that taking on a head of sustainability role, your biggest concern probably is how easy is it going to be to get the buy-in, and how much do people actually want to do around this. Well, I think it's never been easier to make the case now, and I think part of that is because of the demand from customers, and the kind of the clear commercial benefit of sustainability is there now and is very obvious. So I do think it's quite an exciting time. And then in terms of our focus as a business, so our plan covers 3 areas of people, product, and planet, and that really then makes sure that we're looking both at our own business and our own impact on the world kind of directly, but also at our offer and the products that we're sourcing and supplying, and the impact that they have. And Emma mentioned, the impact of the ingredients that they're sourcing. For us, when you look at our carbon emissions, around 95% of them lie in the supply chain. So while it's incredibly important that we decarbonize our own operations by looking at our fleet and moving to electric vehicles and improving the efficiency of our buildings and all of that infrastructure, it's not enough unless we look at what we're sourcing and work with our customers on how they can improve the menus they're offering, and making sure that we offer a great range of products. So we have the biggest range of vegan or plant-based products in food service, and I think that is an important element, and kind of shifting that towards that consumer demand towards a more plant-based diet will be really key for all of this industry to decarbonize.
That's brilliant. Thanks a lot, Peter. That was great. And Anne, I'd like to ask the next couple of questions to you, if I may. We just heard from Peter then talking about the importance of the whole supply chain in sustainability. How much can purchase decisions contribute to a business achieving its sustainability goals?
Well, I think we just touched on it. It's absolutely massive, and especially in the food industry. So we're not as high as 95% for Peter, but 88% of our emission will be coming through our purchases for Compass UK and Ireland. So very, very important to make those right decisions, those informed decisions. I'm going to be the first one to say data today, but I think this is very much key of making those right decisions. Again, enabling, we touch on menus building, plant-based. Let's buy the right product. Let's be pragmatic about the way we purchase as well. There's a lot of, because we know sustainability is so important at the moment. We're making a lot of teams and chefs trying to make a lot of decisions for all the right reasons, but we need to bring back a bit of pragmatism and again analytical decisions in what we do. It's what we purchase is how we purchase, how we interact also with our suppliers. We cannot, if we're expecting to only purchase from very sustainable suppliers, today we're going to be cutting ourselves from 80% of the supply chain. So how again do we take those suppliers in the journey? How do we purchase, moving away from transactional relation to a more collaborative and setting together milestones? So again, good suppliers with good intention can be part of that journey for the next 3 to 5 years. I talked about innovation as well. I think being that sustainable field is exponential. Innovations in that field are exponential. So making the right decision and being able to secure innovations at the right time, as you say, Dema, the right mindset is absolutely essential. But again, going back to what I started, data informed decision, absolutely imperative. Ultimately, if I can finish on that.
May I jump in and just compliment what Anne was saying there? I mean, it's something we're hearing. I hear the word maybe 10 times a day at the moment, data. It's constant and it's incredibly important. And I guess we're at a moment where we've probably had more data than we've ever had. But what we're not well equipped yet is to really understand what exact data we need and how we drive insights from that data, and then how we drive action from that data. And we're certainly getting there, but there's a lot more to be done. And I know all of us have had to fill out surveys, whether it's from our customers or it's even from our suppliers as well. And sometimes that data just goes into a black hole and you never hear anything back from it. You don't understand how it's being used. I think collectively we need to get better at understanding what data can actually drive action. This isn't about data for data's sake. It's about meaningful data. So absolutely, that's a key one. And then one other point I mentioned, which I think is absolutely spot on, is we really don't want to be, if we wanted to be clean quickly, we would drop suppliers or companies that aren't doing the right thing. But that's not the way of driving broader change. We have to engage, we have to work together, because those suppliers will continue to exist. And if we're not working with them to help them understand where can they drive change, then we're actually not contributing to the broader systemic change, as well as cleaning up and sorting out our own value chain. We need to work more collectively as society. So I think that's a really good point, is to engage, collaborate and be open. This isn't about testing or kind of putting our suppliers on the spot, but it's about really understanding their pain points and what we can do together to tackle them.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Emma. That's a great build on what Anne was saying. And Anne, I guess coming back to that, how do you think that operators can actually collaborate even more with suppliers to improve their sustainability?
Well, it's collaboration. It's another word that we've been using and we need to use. It's collaboration all the way through. To be transparent, we've mentioned as well, being very clear on what we want to achieve, having ambitious goals, being transparent if you're not achieving them, and reassess. But ultimately, that's Emma also touched on having to interact with peers and actors in the industry that she would not have interacted before, and we are doing the same through SACS. That collaboration, that knowledge sharing is absolutely essential. And jumping back on what Emma said about the data and the roles and the quality of the data, and he has absolutely agree with you, it has to be consistent. I need to be asking my supplier the same thing that my client are asking, and we need to be a bit more consistent. And that, again, will go through collaboration, most certainly.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Anne. Collaboration is certainly coming through as a key word on this webinar. Emma, we've all seen a lot of campaigns and TV campaigns, for example, that focus on the benefits of making one small change, you know, and that small daily actions can make a real difference. I guess it's asking you from your point of view whether you agree with that, and if that can be used as a means of getting buy-in from employees, and how you would share some insights into how you would do that.
Absolutely. We all have to start somewhere, right? We can't all suddenly overnight own an electric car and have the cleanest, greenest pension, which of course are really big things that individuals can do to reduce their own personal footprint. We all need to start somewhere. And I do genuinely believe that lots of small actions do add up to a big difference. We've been talking for decades about turning the light switches off to save energy and save money. There are really basic things that people really understand, but it's almost, what I'm seeing is that my colleagues will do one thing, feel really good and it's really easy, then move on to the next thing, and those things can grow over time. Peter mentioned it earlier, we all know reducing meat and animal products in our diet is a really important lever that we can all push on for change. Doesn't mean cutting out meat completely or having to go vegan, but it just means making potentially 1 or 2 more plant-based choices per week, which can actually deliver both for the environment and for our own personal health. So, and then that can go on to the next thing. Is that then about, okay, 1 day a week, I'm gonna, instead of getting in my car, I'm gonna cycle, or I'm gonna take public transport. Those small actions can really start to grow things. And of course, small actions then become habits, and then we just start to do them normally. So absolutely, we have to start somewhere. Our role as well in companies is, with our colleagues, is to help inspire them and inform them of what are those actions they can take, as well as the advocacy we do for the bigger actions, the policy change, the supply chain change. We need every lever to be pulled.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Emma. That's great. And Peter, what new innovations in packaging, for example, are you using in the supply chain to lower carbon emissions and waste?
Yeah, so I think, well, packaging is an interesting one, and it gets a bad rap, if you excuse the pun, but because packaging obviously has a really, really vital role to play, and as Emma just said, the impact of the product itself that we're moving is usually far greater than the packaging when you look at kind of carbon footprint and things. So so packaging is vital to keep the food product safe and fresh. But there's no doubt that, you know, over time we've become far too reliant on plastics and kind of excessive packaging. I suppose in the food service industry, we're quite fortunate that efficiency and cutting the amount of extra cost you're putting in has always been a focus. So in terms of the amount of packaging we use, we're already being very efficient. But I'd say, you know, for packaging for us is that two elements. One is about reducing, and that's both about, yeah, how can you lose some of the packaging you're using, whether that's just through redesign or through we're trialing, you know, reuse of things. So could you use a reusable crate or tote bag or something to deliver, and that could actually have quite a big impact, because as you'd imagine, we get through a fair few boxes. So that's one element, and the other piece is recycling, and our targets align with the UK Plastic Pact, which is around recyclability, recycled content, and compostability of that packaging. So 100% by 2025. And I think those are the two big elements, and we've had some good progress. So I said about the over-reliance, and the biggest focus is on taking out those unrecyclable plastics where we can. So at the end of 2020, we removed all the hard black plastics, which are the notorious ones that don't get picked up by the recycling systems. And we'll kind of continue in that vein to just improve what we're doing around packaging. But yeah, as I said, I think we while packaging is really important, we shouldn't lose focus on what we're actually buying and where the biggest impact goes.
But thanks, Peter. And everybody has talked about the importance of engagement, whether it's with, I mean, Emma mentioned different people, different job functions within businesses, the employees, etc., your suppliers. So how do you go about communicating your sustainability messages?
Yeah, and I think this is an interesting one, because obviously with following on from packaging, with packaging you can see that very clearly when there's a change, something so visible when you get your order of an improvement, and hopefully the messaging that kind of goes with that to explain it. For us, you know, with when you talk about kind of communicating to our customers, we have this diverse mix of people like Anne in huge businesses, where they're looking for a very different type of information and perhaps more corporate sustainability plan and all of the data and everything that fits behind that, and no doubt some questionnaires and things, right down to an independent pub that wants to just know exactly what we can do for them, what can they write on their menus, and how can they communicate that to consumers. So I think it's that real mix of, you know, making sure that we have all of the corporate information available, but also that it's the right down to the level of what can we do for you. And we know that so many of our customers want to know more about sustainability and want to know what they can do. So a real focus for me now is on looking at how we can help them with that, and what's the best route to do that, and both through the information and the support that we can provide, and critically through the product range that we supply as well. So I don't have a clear answer for you on exactly how we do that, but you know, as many ways as possible, really, I think.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Peter. Appreciate that. And Anne, from your experience, what changes would you advocate that companies should make in order to have a positive impact? And again, from your experience, what's the outcome if no changes are made? So what's the negative impact to a business of not making the necessary changes?
I think the basis is how important is sustainability for you. So where does your sustainability team sits? Emma explained where heads off we can interact with all departments, and so we should. However, where do we sit? I think, without being too controversial, but we need to extract. I see sustainability sitting still a lot with marketing. Maybe we need to extract the sustainability team from just the marketing and the communication. I'm the first one to shout about the great stuff we do, don't get me wrong, but yeah, maybe having more of that pivotal position is very important. One of the other changes is, and we touch on it, collaborating with our competitors, with our peers, collaborating with NGOs. I think we've seen them not so much as sustainability crew, but we also often see NGOs as a little bit of blockers on the great commercial work we want to do, and that's definitely an area that has to change, and also with the suppliers understanding. We know that in procurement they're expert in their fields, but we need to also trust what they know and what they want to share with us. Having bold targets, as I said, I think is key. To be the first one, don't hesitate. Be the first in everything you do, I think is super important. And that's, again, touching on innovation, to be able to be the first one to secure this and so on. But be first and be bold, I think, is a message that we're certainly trying to pass on at Foodbuy. What is the negative impact if you don't do that? Well, first of all, you're going to be missing out on a lot of, again, information and knowledge and opportunities. I'm talking about bold targets. Be transparent. If, as I said before, if you don't achieve, I think we're all at risk here greenwashing as well. So reputational risk is huge. We have since January the green claim code, the new green claim code, and we know the scrutiny into what we claim is going to be huge. So I think something that we again, another study there suggests that 1 in 2 environmental claim is actually inaccurate. That's huge. So we certainly don't want to be part of that. So be very, as much as we don't want to, of course, nobody wants to greenwash again. The scrutiny now is going to be huge. We've seen recent example of companies that are even put on a pedestal as being some of the most sustainable one and got beaten a little bit. So that reputational risk is either because you're inaccurate or because you jumped on a train a little too late is absolutely huge.
That's brilliant. Thanks a lot, Anne, for that. I love the analogy of jumping on a train a little bit too late. That's great. So you kind of alluded to some companies doing things particularly well when you were responding then. I'd like to ask Emma, from your experience, Emma, who do you think is doing particularly well in terms of sustainability, and why do you think that?
Gosh, there's so many great examples out there that we can draw on, and I think it's really important to look at examples. We don't need to reinvent the wheel always on sustainability. We just need to try and find those areas that we can do something, particularly if it's material to our business or it's somewhere where we can uniquely add value, and that's what's really important. I guess there's some of the really famous ones that are doing super great stuff and have capitalized on that. I mean, a great example, of course, is Patagonia in the fashion sector, who have massively built trust, reputation, and actually business value by capitalizing on sustainability. Their whole model of mend and make do, circular fashion, using sustainably procured materials is what their brand stands for. It's what they're famous for. And actually, it increases consumer loyalty and it increases their sales ultimately. So it's a really great example of where sustainability can deliver for the business. I think there's some really other interesting examples out there of companies like Oddbox, whose very purpose, their very existence is about rescuing fruit and veg from fields that would otherwise be left to rot, essentially, and providing that to consumers at a discounted price because the fruit does look and the veg look a bit odd, but they're actually perfectly fine. So I think that's really exciting. There are other good examples in the cosmetic sector, people like Lush, who for such a long time have been premised on using naturally sourced ingredients, have long stood firmly against things like animal testing and other key major agendas, and of course it stood them in good stead. And then I think examples again like Tom's, who are trying to help make the world a better place one pair of shoes at a time. When you buy shoes, they donate shoes, is another great one. And actually even more surprising examples from the likes of Nike, who have been looking at making quite trendy looking trainers that consumers want to buy from recycled plastics, and even going as far as trying to rescue ocean plastics, which we know is a major challenge, and then turn them into something really high value, really desirable. So I think in all these examples, what we can really see is that it's about finding something that resonates with your brand, and then showing how that can add value to consumers. It doesn't have to be oh, by the way, and we made it sustainable. It can be really part of the core proposition of that brand. And I think there's some great examples for us to look at and learn from.
That's a great list of companies. And most of those companies are very well established. But I often think how difficult it must be for SMEs to actually know what to do when it comes to, as you said, Emma, taking one step at a time to become more sustainable. So I guess, Peter, working with quite a lot of independent businesses, what first steps do you suggest smaller businesses should take in a bid to become more sustainable?
Yeah, and I think it is a question that gets asked a lot, and I think the examples Emma gave are great. And the difference probably is they're all founded on that purpose and to kind of tackle that issue, which as we know, most of our customers are not formed on a purpose of sustainability. So I think there's two areas to look at. The first is, when you're running a small business, there's just so much to do, and there's so much you could do. So where do you have the greatest influence, and what is it that you can directly input to? And then secondly, of that list, where's the impact to be had? So, whether you're looking at one outlet where you can improve the energy efficiency, or buy, change your electricity contract to be from green energy. Those are quite simple areas with very low investment usually, that you can change, and then working with your suppliers, like hopefully brakes, to look at the products that you're sourcing, and how you can change your offer to be more sustainable and to reduce your impact in that way. I think the most important thing with all of it is goes back to what Anne was saying about the claims that people are making. So I would say to be very kind of authentic and very transparent about what you are doing, and equally what you're not doing, because that's where you can build trust with your customers and build that kind of loyal base. And if you're transparent about where you are and where you want to be, then hopefully they will come along with you on that, because not all of it's going to be easy. Some of it will mean changing your range and changing what you're stocking, which your regulars might not like as much, and so it's about working with them to kind of adjust that. So I think, yeah, the authenticity and transparency is really, really key.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Dare I say this question and pose it to Anne? I know Anne's got quite strong views. That the impression is that food service is behind retail when it comes to sustainability. In your view, is that true? And if so, what can food service do to catch up?
Well, I certainly don't think that's the impression is justified. Compass UK Ireland made a pledge to be net zero across all of the supply chain by 2030. I don't think that's been matched by any of the retailers yet, and I hope it will. I genuinely hope it will be matched. However, we still can all be better and stronger in what we do. So if it's not to catch up with retail, what we can do ultimately is we need to see sustainability as being efficient ultimately. So we need to be more efficient. We need to probably streamline our supplier base. It comes down to that quite a lot. We see the number of suppliers, and probably the same for Peter and Emma, but the number of suppliers I need to engage with is far too great. And I think we probably be a bit indulgent. We always want in procurement to be efficient, but there is now more need to streamline the supplier and the range of what we purchase. And as I said, working differently with our suppliers. Maybe where we didn't commit before on volumes, we're ultimately asking our supplier to make big investment to be sustainable and change the way they work. So we need to, as I said, that it's either the length of the contract, the content of the contract, the milestone we put. We certainly need to be a bit more creative the way we interact with them. As I said, we take them on a journey. We created a supplier hub in Foodbuy where it's educational. They can interact with one another. As we said, it's important to interact with your peers, with your competitors. So we're also asking our suppliers to interact and share their challenges and maybe seek the same opportunities. So that's the sort of things we're trying to think outside the box. You always have when you work in sustainability, I think. But that's definitely where our interaction with supplier needs to be up a notch.
Up a notch. I love that. Right, we're speaking of up a notch. We have just a few more minutes before we're going to start taking questions, because I can see there's a number of questions coming in, and I really encourage people to submit questions, because this is a really great opportunity to access experts in the field of sustainability. So I'd really urge you to do that. So one final question, which is all about the future. And how do you think things will change when it comes to sustainability in the workplace? I'll kick off with yourself, Anne. What are your views?
Well, it'd be great when we don't have to call it a sustainability workplace. It becomes a workplace. Nice. I think I don't mean to skype the question here, but that's I think that's what we're all striving for.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Anne. And Peter, what's your view?
Yeah, I think as I started off by, or as earlier I said, it's becoming more and more important to our customers, and the case for sustainability is easier to make now. I think hopefully that will only continue to grow, and as Anne said about not a sustainable workplace, just a workplace. I think there's a long been a sort of cliche among sustainability geeks that the job of a sustainability manager is to put yourself out of work and embed it within the business. Whether we'll ever get to that point, I'm not sure, but hopefully not in my working life. But really important that it is embedded within everybody's roles, and I think we'll see that even more. So, for example, that our merchandising teams know all of the issues, and already know all of the issues kind of through their supply chains of the categories that they're managing, and that they're responsible for the sustainability of those. And you see that across kind of every area of the business. So I think we'll just see it become more and more embedded in everybody's roles, and hopefully, be part of their objectives and performance indicators.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Peter. And Emma, what's your view? What do you think will happen?
Couldn't agree more. We're seeing sustainability become mainstream. It just being part of every meeting agenda is that it's talked about. It becomes common language. I think actually also what we're going to see is just a change in the kind of literacy around sustainability. So people starting to understand these terms and be able to speak with credibility and authority. And it'd be great when I'm not being invited to meetings as the expert, because they've got enough expertise and capability. So I think one of the big things, of course, is going to be, how do we collectively build that capability among our colleagues? We can't expect people to become sustainability experts overnight, nor do we need everybody to have deep expertise in everything, but we need people to be literate, to really understand what these terms mean, what our companies are doing, and then know who to go to get the detailed information they need. So bring on making it mainstream. But yeah, that's what I think is going to happen soon.
Brilliant. That's great. Thank you. And before I hand over to Lorraine, I just want to signpost some of the key takeouts from today. So we talked about meaningful data, the importance of that, and the importance of using it to drive action and knowledge sharing. We talked about engagement, working with suppliers, not just our own business, and obviously working with people within our business in terms of all of those different job functions that Emma and Peter mentioned earlier. We talked a lot about changing mindsets, that those are little changes that small businesses can make, that individuals can make, right through to the bigger corporate strategic change. And we talked an awful lot about collaboration across the supply chain, and some really exciting initiatives with competitors, and Podback initiative was a great example of that. But most of all, what's come through, I hope for everyone from this, is it's a really exciting time to be a part of sustainability and driving change within a business, and we can all play our individual roles and get involved. And let's hope, as Emma said, that we will be talking about it. It will be mainstream, and Emma won't be invited to meetings as the expert. So I just want to say thank you so much for a really informative, insightful discussion. And I'm now going to hand over to Lorraine. Thank you.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Anita, and also a huge thank you to all our panelists. I must admit, I've even learned so much on here today. And I think, as Anita said, we can actually all play our role going forward. But we do have a couple of questions that have come in from our audience, and our audience is very much a mix of larger suppliers to the food service and hospitality industry, to smaller suppliers, to operators, to manufacturers, to wholesalers. But we've had one question in, which is quite an interesting one actually, in from a gentleman called Mark Alderson. And he's basically saying, what advice would you give to someone who wants to build a career in sustainability? Now, I'm going to go to you, Peter, for this one, because this is quite a new role for you. So what advice would you actually give Mark and anybody else who wanted to build a career in sustainability?
I think, and as you can imagine, I've been asked this a few times. So I think the most important thing is really the kind of understanding of business and the way that businesses work and they function and the supply chain impacts. Because I think if you can understand how all of that functions and also how, as was said earlier in the discussion, how to speak to people in their own language and kind of the most important things to them and how they're going to, or they or their function are going to benefit from what you're doing. That's really, you know, the most key thing of working in sustainability. And I think often I'm you know, either a translator or negotiator within the business, kind of talking to every function and trying to build that understanding and kind of working together across the business. So I think, yeah, the business understanding and the ability to engage lots of people are really, really key.
Brilliant, thank you.
Can I build on that, Lorraine?
Yeah, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, it's a great time to get into sustainability, and it doesn't mean you have to have done a degree in biology or geography or environmental sciences. Actually, we need everybody in sustainability. We need, as we mentioned earlier, and we need data scientists that can analyze data and help provide insights. I need creatives who can bring sustainability stories to life, to engage employees, to engage consumers. I need excellent communicators who can bring message. So we need all the different skill sets. So I guess my key advice would be, know your skill set, and that can be really useful in sustainability in different ways, as well as the kind of sustainability expertise which you can learn as you go. There's so many fantastic courses available on the internet. Joining webinars like this, you can suck in information, reading reports. So upskill yourself, but also figure out where your skill set that you've got can really play a role.
Absolutely, I could not agree more. Yeah. Brilliant,
thank you. We did actually also touch earlier on, you know, how can small businesses tackle sustainability? And that is actually one of the questions that came in just prior to you answering that question. And obviously, Peter, you know, you did mention that, you know, there is so much to do if you are within a small business, and it's really important that, you know, you've got to do what makes the greatest impact, such as changing your electricity supplier and working with suppliers and the products that you're sourcing. But one of the other things that this person's also said is, what resources are available to small businesses to actually help them drive sustainability with limited budgets and limited resources? What can they do? Where can they go to get advice from either people or companies that can help them? Don't know who'd like to answer that one.
Well, quite happy to.
Yep.
Within your own environment, we support our SMEs. You have a lot of resources out there. How to submit your SBTIs. You've got a lot of things you can find yourself, and we're very happy to point our suppliers and clients in the right direction. But I think within your own supply chain, inbound, outbound, you absolutely can get support there. Bigger organization like Cisco, Nestle, or Compass certainly have the capacity and are building the knowledge, and we do get the feeling from today are absolutely willing to share it and support. So I think just you don't need to go too far without going to the consultant of this world. Yeah, in your front door quite often.
Brilliant, thank you. And another question that's actually come in from Paul Fieldhouse from Ramco. So Paul, thank you for this one. Now, Paul has highlighted here that obviously sustainability needs to go much further than just food waste and single-use plastic. So how do the panelist companies and their clients dispose of end-of-use equipment and machinery to ensure reuse and a circular approach? Who'd like to answer that?
Well, I will start. I hope we didn't just touch on food waste and single-use plastic. A lot of the emissions on food will actually be coming from land usage and feed. So these are the two major one we're trying to tackle. However, without being dismissive of the end of life of machinery, and I'm talking here for Compass, we use quite a lot. There is a number of social enterprises and even waste management companies that take care of that. So that's absolutely not something we're dismissing, and there's actually quite a lot of support there if we want it, and we want it, we use it.
Brilliant, thank you, Anne. And another question that's come in from Helen Collingbourne from Speed. So thanks for this, Helen. So Helen is basically saying you've had some great examples of companies in the consumer space when it comes to sustainability, but who do you think is doing great things in the B2B space?
That's a great question. Maybe Peter, you might have some thoughts.
Oh, you passed that on very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a really good question. I need to have a little think. Actually, no, there are some good examples. So there's a company that actually makes carpet tiles called Interface, which has long been kind of topping the charts of the most sustainable businesses. And it's really, yeah, I'd look into it because it's a really interesting business, and the kind of the way that they go about it. But you know, buildings being a big impact in terms of sustainability, and then the materials that go into them. So carpet tiles actually have a more significant impact than you'd think. So they're doing an awful lot in that area.
It's a good example, actually. They use recycled fishing nets and things that get discarded in the ocean to make their carpet tiles, which then go into our office floors, which are really hard wearing. And the way they design it is not like carpet we might have at home that's just a long roll, but it's actually in a tile. So if you do have a spillage in one area, you don't have to replace the whole carpet. You can simply replace the tile. So it becomes a much more, so yeah, that's a really good example. But yeah, let's think on that one. I think there's lots of social enterprises out there that are entering that B2B space to help us. And it's something we're really driving at within Nestlé as well, is how can we, because we all have budgets, we all spend money with companies to help us move goods and services around. And there's a real opportunity for us to support businesses that have a social and environmental purpose. So it's definitely something I'd encourage you all to look at when you're contracting as well.
I think just it's an interesting question to come as well, because I think it builds a bit on the question that you asked Anne around, you know, is food service behind retail, and obviously all of those consumer brands also supply, or many of them also supply businesses too. And I think that pressure from consumers has been there for longer, but now for sure you're seeing that in B2B. So while we're all sort of going, ooh, what are those examples? And I'm sure there are many more. I think if you ask us in another probably 5 minutes, then but if you ask us soon, I think there'll be so many more, because the demand from businesses is really, really there now.
That's brilliant. Thank you. And we've just got time for one final question. And this again is coming from an anonymous attendee who is basically asking, where does the responsibility lie with regard to food waste within the workplace? Is it down to individuals or the businesses themselves to ensure no food is wasted? Who'd like to take that one? Anne?
Well, I would say it's both. As I said at the beginning, you certainly need your team to be engaged, and I find them personally quite engaged and challenging. So we want to enable, we want to offer the facilities and making sure everything is doable. But so our responsibility in a workplace to enable, and then absolutely the employees, if they're interested, and they absolutely are. To just practice that, absolutely. There's always a good story also with where your waste goes, and people are so very. I think the example on the coffee ground, and you can do so many things with your food waste. People actually are
Brilliant. Thank you. So we haven't got time for any more questions. So all that leaves me to say is thank you so much to all our panelists for joining us here today, for Nescafe partnering with us on today's webinar, and also a huge thank you to Anita for being an excellent chair, and obviously you, our audience. So thank you once again. This has been recorded, so you'll all get a copy, and we will also be sharing this on social media. Enjoy the rest of the day, and I'm hoping the sun's going to come out. So anyway, thank you all very much. Take care. Bye.
Thanks all. Lovely to
Bye-bye.
see you.
Thank you.
Bye.